Comes a rainstorm, put your rubbers on your feet. Comes a snowstorm, you can get a little heat. Comes love, nothing can be done. Comes a fire that you know just what to do. Blow a tire, you can buy another shoe. Comes love, nothing can be done. Don't try hiding, 'cause there isn't any use. You start sliding when your heart turns on. The juice comes a headache, you can lose it in a day. Comes a toothache, see your dentist right away. Comes love, nothing can be done. Comes a heat wave, hurry to the shore. Comes a summons, you can hide behind the door. Comes love, nothing can be done. Comes the measles, you could quarantine a room. Comes a mousey, you can chase him with a broom. Comes love, nothing can be done. That's all, brother, if you've ever been in love. That's all, sister, do you know what I'm thinking of? Comes a nightmare, you can always stay awake. Comes depression, get another break. Comes love, nothing can be done. Comes love, nothing can be done.
Comes love, nothing can be done. Robin McKell for you on Jazz 24. The release there called Modern Antique. Nice rendition. Gary Burton with Pat Metheny and Chick Corea, Dave Holland, and Roy Haynes all together in 98. Question and answer. We also heard from Stan Getz and Kenny Barron and Red Garland and Candace Springs, my oh my, and MJQ recorded live here in Seattle. Coming up, another live recording. The Happy Orchestra came to our studios. Yeah, they're right up after Monty Alexander. This is from 2002, him doing the Bill Dudgett Honky Tonk on Jazz 24.
Support comes from the Virginia Maritime Association, celebrating a century of maritime industry growth. Join them February 12th at noon for an uplifting program and fundraiser. More at vamaritime.com/feedva.
You can hear the audio saying, Mike Pence let us down. If you want to get something done, you're going to have to do it yourself, the voice says.
The insurgents amplified President Trump's tweet attacking the vice president with a bullhorn. They were paying attention, and they also followed instructions. In fact, the insurgents were at one point, as you saw, 60 feet away from the vice president and the vice president's family. Some of these insurgents were heard saying, quote, that they hope to find Vice President Mike Pence and execute him by hanging him from a Capitol Hill tree as a traitor. And then they erected a gallows with a noose. This is what Donald Trump incited. Please take a close look at that picture. It harkens back to our nation's worst history of lynching. A president's words have the power to move people to action. These were the results. And why did the president incite such rage against the vice president? He was fulfilling his constitutional duty, as we all were that day. Vice presidents in this country have been carrying out this constitutional duty, overseeing the certification of the election results without incident, without contest, without a word, for the entirety of our nation. It's part of our peaceful transition of power in the United States. And the vice president said he reviewed the Constitution and he could not block certification as President Trump wanted him and was pressuring him to do. He told the president in a letter that morning, a few hours before President Trump's tweet, quote, I will approach this moment with a sense of duty and an open mind, setting politics and personal interests aside, and do my part to faithfully discharge my duties, our duties, under the Constitution. I also pray that we will do so with humility and faith. And the president's response to that statement was to attack Mike Pence while he was with his family under the threat of a violent mob. The vice president was following his faith.
This is live special coverage from NPR News. We're listening to the Senate impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump.
The vice president and I don't agree on.
You're listening to 89.5 WHRV Norfolk, 88.5 WHRG Gloucester Point, 90.1 WHRX Nassawadox, 91.9 WHRE Eastville, and 88.1 WHRL Emporia. This is member-supported public media serving Eastern Virginia.
And he and his family, who was with him that day, didn't deserve this. Didn't deserve a president unleashing a mob on them, especially because he was just doing his job. As this was unfolding and the crowd grew more violent, the president, of course, was not alone at the White House. And the people closest to him, his family and advisors who saw this unfolding in real time, begged him, implored him to stop the attack. An aide to Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, urged his boss to go see the president, saying, quote, they are going to kill people. They're going to kill people. That's what those around President Trump feared. And still, nothing. It wasn't until 2:38 p.m., nearly 2 hours after the start of the siege, that Donald Trump even acknowledged the attack. And when he finally did acknowledge the attack, here's what he said. On the right, you'll see what had been happening prior to that tweet and as he sent the tweet. And on the left, you'll see exactly what he tweeted.
I'm going to stop you there for just one moment because we do have some breaking news. We want to bring in congressional correspondent Chad Pergram as this is just all developing right now. Chad, I understand the Capitol is now on lockdown.
This is additional video from that day. Some of it is the Capitol security footage.
The chant, by the way, I heard the most today was "Fight for Trump," and that's clearly
this
what
is a
many
reporter
of them feel
for Fox
they're doing.
News in a media report from that day. You are seeing now senators being evacuated, spliced up against the rioters outside the west front of the Capitol, and confronting law enforcement officers trying to break down the door. Members of the House being ushered off the floor, and one of the rioters waving a Trump flag from the west front.
That's what our president saw unfolding in real time, broadcast all over television. And this is what he tweeted at 2:38 p.m. Quote, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They're truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." And much has been made of the fact that in this tweet, he says, "Stay peaceful." Senators, stay peaceful? Think about that for a second. These folks were not peaceful. They were breaking windows, pushing through law enforcement officers, waving the flag as they invaded this Capitol building. This was a violent, armed attack. Stay peaceful? How about stop the attack? Stop the violence. Stay peaceful? How about you say immediately leave? Stop. And he said, please support our law enforcement. How about he actually support our law enforcement by telling these insurgents to leave the Capitol immediately, which he never did. He didn't. Because the truth is, he didn't want it to stop. He wanted them to stay and to stop the certification. And his failure had grave and deadly consequences. By 2:45 p.m., the warnings were tragically proven correct. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an officer as she tried to break through a glass door to reach the Speaker's lobby. At this point, the pleas to Donald Trump, publicly and privately, grew even more desperate. At 2:54 p.m., Alyssa Farah, a former strategic communications director, begged the president, quote, "Condemn this now. You're the only one they will listen to. For our country." Mick Mulvaney, the president's former chief of staff, his right-hand man at one point, tweeted at 3:01, "The president's tweet is not enough. He can stop this now and needs to do exactly that. Tell these folks to go home." He can stop this now. Tell these folks to go home. At 3:06 p.m., Rep. McCarthy appeared on Fox News. Here's what he said.
"I could not be sadder or more disappointed with the way our country looks at this very moment. People are getting hurt. Anyone involved in this, if you're hearing me, hear me very loud and clear. This is not the American way."
He's saying on Fox News, which the president watches, this is not the American way. Stop the attack. Representative Gallagher at 3:11 p.m., while secured in his own office, posted a video to Twitter.
"Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off. Call it off.
And then, when the president didn't answer his pleas on Twitter, Representative Gallagher went on live television.
I mean, this is insane. I mean, I've not seen anything like this since I deployed to Iraq in 2007 and 2008.
This is an interview of Wisconsin Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher in an interview he gave CNN on January 6th. This interview was happening in the middle of the attack.
Representative Gallagher, you see there, said he'd not seen anything like this since he was deployed in Iraq. The message around the president was clear from everyone. You need to call this off. Stop it. But does he? No. His next tweet was not until about 3:13 p.m. Once again, it's important to consider what was happening between Donald Trump's 2:38 p.m. tweet and his next tweet at 3:13 p.m. You'll see footage from the attack during that time on the right and Donald Trump's tweet on the left.
We've been informed that protesters have penetrated the Capitol.
This is another media interview between Michael Walz, a Republican from Florida, that he gave to Fox News on that day.
Sentiment in the streets is really getting to a different level. This is spinning out of control. This is turning violent.
This is a Fox News reporter and a media report.
Not one idea. Don't touch me, don't.
More video footage. This is media footage of that day between rioters and Capitol Police Force that were outside the west front of the Capitol. Bit of a montage of law enforcement officers confronting the rioters. Again, many of the rioters in combat gear with helmets and bulletproof vests, shields, batons. As we heard earlier, many came prepared with things like bear spray and other weapons to directly confront law enforcement.
This isn't 10 minutes into the insurrection. This isn't just after his speech earlier that day. That's what our commander-in-chief saw happening, and that was his response. You'll notice one of the things he says to his mob, to these insurrectionists, rather than to stop or to leave, was to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what? Thank you for shattering the windows and destroying property. Thank you for injuring more than 140 police officers. Thank you for putting in danger all of our lives and the lives of our families. How about instead of thank you, Donald Trump on that day acted like our commander-in-chief and stopped this as only he could and told those people to leave. And here's what former Governor Chris Christie, his very good friend, said after that tweet.
Pretty simple. The president caused this protest to occur. He's the only one who can make it stop. What the president said is not good enough. The president has to come out and tell his supporters to leave the Capitol grounds and to allow the Congress to do their business peacefully. And anything short of that is an abrogation of his responsibility.
He's right. Chris Christie is right. We know how Donald Trump acts on Twitter and otherwise when he has a message to convey. In fact, I asked you to remember those tweets earlier this morning when he yelled on Twitter, "Stop the count." When he wanted to incite his supporters to show up on January 6th, President Trump tweeted 16 times between midnight on January 5th and his noon rally speech the next day. 16 times to get them to do something he wanted. And his message in those 16 times was clear. Fight. Stay strong. Be strong. But when the violence started, he never once said the one thing everyone around him was begging him to say: stop the attack. He refused to stop it. And as Governor Christie and Representative Kinzinger and others made clear, only Donald Trump could have stopped that attack.
You know, a guy that knows how to tweet very aggressively on Twitter, you know, puts out one of the weakest statements in one of the saddest days in American history because his ego won't let him, you know, admit defeat.
That was the voice of Representative Kinzinger.
He was not just our
Illinois.
commander-in-chief. He had incited the attack. The insurgents were following his commands. And we saw when they read aloud this tweet, attacking the vice president. And they confirmed this during the attack, too.
This is again video that the New Yorker had. You'll hear some language.
Senators, ask yourself this: how easy would it have been for the president to give a simple command, a simple instruction, just telling them, stop, leave? This was a dereliction of duty, plain and simple. And it would have been for any president who had done that. And that brings me to my next point. You heard from my colleagues that when planning this attack, the insurgents predicted that Donald Trump would command the National Guard to help them. And there's a lot that we don't know yet about what happened that day. But here's what we do know. Donald Trump did not send help to these officers who were badly outnumbered, overwhelmed, and being beaten down. 2 hours into the insurrection, by 3 p.m., President Trump had not deployed the National Guard or any other law enforcement to help, despite multiple pleas to do so. President Donald Trump was at the time our Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. He took a solemn oath to preserve, protect, and defend this country, and he failed to uphold that oath. In fact, there's no indication that President Trump ever made a call to have the Guard deployed or had anything to do with the Guard being deployed when it ultimately was. And shortly after 3:04 p.m., the acting defense secretary announced that the Guard had been activated and listed the people he spoke with prior to this activation, including Vice President Mike Pence, Speaker Pelosi, Leader McConnell, Senator Schumer, and Representative Hoyer. But that list did not include the president. This omission of his name was reportedly not accidental. According to reports, quote, Trump initially rebuffed requests to mobilize the National Guard and required interference by other officials, including his own White House counsel. And later, quote, as a mob of Trump supporters breached police barricades and seized the Capitol, Trump reportedly was, quote, disengaged in discussions with Pentagon leaders about deploying the National Guard to aid the overwhelmed U.S. Capitol Police. President Trump was reportedly, and I quote, completely, totally out of it. He made no attempt to reach the National Guard, and it was Vice President Pence, still under the threat for his life, who reportedly spoke to the Guard. President Trump's conduct confirms this too. At no point on January 6 did Donald Trump even reference the National Guard. The only thing that we heard connecting the president to the Guard was from his press secretary, who tweeted about the Guard being deployed at the president's direction over half an hour later at 3:36 p.m. And we have seen what Donald Trump does when he tries to take credit for something. And yet, even when the National Guard was finally deployed, he didn't even acknowledge it. In fact, he didn't say a word about the National Guard the entire day. Think about that. The bloodiest attack we've seen on our Capitol since 1812, and our president couldn't be bothered to even mention that help was on its way. These insurgents had been attacking our government for over 4 hours by that point. And we may have been the target, but it was the brave men and women who protect our Capitol who were out there combating thousands of armed insurgents in a fight for their lives. And that's who Donald Trump left entirely unprotected.
There's more video from the scene. On that day, January 6th.
This is events that were happening around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, between 2 and 2:30, relatively early in the day, and the attack on the Capitol. Images of them sort of consuming the west front of the Capitol.
I think it's important we understand what the Capitol Police were facing, how severely they were outnumbered, while our Commander-in-Chief, whose job it was to protect and defend them, was just watching, doing nothing for hours, refusing to send help. If he wanted to protect these officers, if he cared about their safety, as he tweeted about, he would have told his supporters to leave. He would have sent help right away. And one brave officer was killed. Others took their lives after the attack. More than 140 police officers were injured, including cracked ribs, smashed spinal discs. One officer will lose an eye. Another was stabbed with a metal fence stake. They were completely and violently overwhelmed by a mob and needed help. And our Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, refused to send it. Senators, you've seen all the evidence so far, and this is clear. On January 6th, President Trump left everyone in this Capitol for dead. For the next hour after President Trump's 3 p.m. tweet, he still did nothing. Not until 4:17 p.m., over 3.5 hours after the violence started, did our president send a message finally asking the insurgents to go home. On the right, you'll see what happened that day in the hours leading up to his pre-recorded video. On the left, you'll see his message. Let's watch.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it.
This is showing the president on the left side of the screen.
But you have to go home now.
And at 1:48 p.m. on the right-hand side of the screen, we see once again the breaching of the Capitol, the smashing of windows at the same time.
We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you,
all events that transpired before the president made this statement.
Election. But we can't play into the hands
beating
of
of the Capitol Police with sticks.
We have to have peace.
And then that
So
gripping and
home.
distressing video
We
of
love
the
You're very special.
Capitol policeman being grabbed
You've
by the
seen
front of
what
his face
happens.
mask
You
and
see
pulled
the
through
way
a window.
others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
And on the right-hand side of the screen, scenes of violence.
This is the first time our Commander-in-Chief spoke publicly at all since the attack began, over the 3.5 hours after it started. And these are the entirety of the words the President spoke out loud to the American people or to the attackers that entire day. Nowhere in that video, not once, did he say, "I condemn this insurrection. I condemn what you did today." Nowhere did he say, "I'm sending help immediately. Stop this." Here's what he said instead. "I know your pain. I know you're hurt. we had an election that was stolen. Even after all the things we witnessed, even after all of that carnage, he goes out and tells the same big lie. The same big lie that enraged and incited the attack. He repeated this while the attack was ongoing and while we were still under threat. And here's what else he said. Go home in peace. We love you. You're very special. Senators, you were here. You saw this with your own eyes. You faced that danger. And when President Trump had an opportunity to confront them, as the leader of us all, as our commander-in-chief, what did he tell them? We love you. You're very special. This was not a condemnation. This was a message of consolation, of support, of praise. And if there's any doubt that his supporters, these insurgents, took this as a message of support and praise, watch for yourselves.
Donald Trump asked everybody to go home. He just put out a tweet. It's a minute long. He asked everybody to go home.
This is that famous man in furs and antlers being interviewed. The QAnon shaman, Jacob Chansley.
We won by sending a message to Pence, okay, that if they don't do as their oath to do, if they don't uphold the Constitution, then we will remove them from office one way or another.
This individual was also arrested following the attack.
I suspect you recognize that man. You'll hear him say that we won the day. Who won the day? We know that at least 5 people lost their lives that day. The House and the Senate were in life-threatening danger, and so was the Vice President. And think of everyone else here as well. Who won on January 6th? That's not a win for America, but it is a win for Donald Trump unless we hold him accountable. Now, a little over an hour after that video, the brave members of law enforcement secured the Capitol, and we as a Congress got ready to continue certifying the results of our free and fair election. A half hour after that, President Trump issued another tweet in case there was any doubt as to whether he was happy with the people who did this, as to whether he had incited this. He commemorated what happened on January 6th. At 6:01 p.m. on January 6th, he tweeted, quote, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who've been badly and unfairly treated for so long," ending with, "Remember this day forever." My colleague, Manager Cicilline, started with this tweet because this tweet shows exactly how Donald Trump felt about what happened on January 6th. These are the things that happened. He's saying this was foreseeable. He's saying, I told you this was going to happen if you certified the election for anyone else, and you got what you deserved for trying to take my power away. Great patriots, go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. He's saying to them, you did good. He's not regretful. He's not grieving. He's not sad. He's not angry about the attack. He's celebrating it. He's commemorating it. This is the entirety of what President Trump said to the public once the attack began. 5 tweets and a pre-recorded video. On the day of the most bloody insurrection we've faced in generations, our commander-in-chief, who's known for sending 108 tweets in a normal day, sent 5 tweets and a pre-recorded video. That is the entirety of President Trump's public statements from when the attack began until he went to bed on January 6th. That's all he did, despite all the people we know who begged him to preserve, protect, and defend. That was our Commander-in-Chief's response. He began the day with, quote, "Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore." And that's what this is all about. And he ended the attack letting us know that we got what he forewarned that morning. We will, of course, each of us, remember that day forever, but not in the way that President Trump intended. Not because of the actions of these violent, unpatriotic insurrectionists. I'll remember that day forever, because despite President Trump's vicious attempts throughout the day to encourage the siege and block the certification, he failed. At 8:06 p.m., the Senate gavelled into session, and the counting of the electoral votes continued. About an hour later, the House followed suit. And close to 4 a.m., after spending a significant part of the day evacuated or on the floor or hiding, this great body fulfilled the will of the people and certified the Electoral College vote. And I'm proud to be part of Congress. I'm proud that we ensured that the will of the American people finally prevailed on that day. And I'm proud that I and everyone in this room abided by our oath of office, even if the President didn't abide by his. And President Trump, too, took an oath as President. He swore on a Bible to preserve, protect, and defend. And who among us could honestly say they believe that he upheld that oath? And who among us will let his utter dereliction of duty stand?
Representative Joaquin Castro concluding his remarks.
The managers are prepared to recess for the evening and to finish our opening statement tomorrow.
That was Mr. Raskin. We will probably hear from Senator Schumer now.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Pursuant to Impeachment Rule 16, I make a motion.
This is Mike Lee.
Statements were attributed to me moments ago.
Do you want to bring up my mic? Bring up my mic.
Yep.
Statements relating to the content.
This is Utah Senator Mike Lee.
Between a phone call involving President Trump and Senator Tuberville were not made by me. They're not accurate, and they're contrary to fact. I move, pursuant to Rule 16, that they be stricken from the record.
He's referring to arguments made by David Cicilline, a Democrat of Rhode Island, who cited a reported phone call that Donald Trump made to Senator Tommy Tuberville. He referenced Mike Lee, and Mike Lee is saying that that information was incorrect, and he wants it struck from the record.
Provided for in Section 1 of that resolution.
These were press reports, right, Sue?
Correct.
Senator,
I appeal the ruling of the chair.
Could this be a matter of senatorial courtesy, they grant that?
It is very unusual for any senator to speak during an impeachment trial, but Senator Mike Lee seems to be invoking a point of personal privilege in that he was named directly.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Right here. We might as well hear clearly what the ruling of the chair was. So if you would repeat that.
Of course.
I believe that was Roger Wicker, a Republican from Mississippi.
Pursuant to Senate Resolution 47, Section 4, the party's presentations are not limited.
There you go.
Microphone isn't on. I have problems
Pursuant to Senate Resolution 47, Section 4, parties' presentations are not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution. The senator from Utah has appealed that ruling. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
Have you? And the yeas and nays have been requested for sufficient.
And what is the question? Is it, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? Is that the question?
Yes. This is Roger Wicker, a Republican from Mississippi.
Of the chair with respect
to No.
And what, may I ask, is the ruling of the chair? My point was not about whether it's appropriate for them to make characterizations. My point was to strike them because they were false.
Senator Mike Lee is saying that the remarks attributed to him by Representative Cicilline, one of the House managers, were inaccurate.
The question is whether Senate Resolution 47, Section 4, is correct that parties' presentations are not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution.
Mr. President, that is not my motion. You've ruled on a motion. You've ruled on something that was not what I moved.
Senator Lee wants his remarks removed from the record, as I understand it.
Attributed to me repeatedly, as to which I have personal knowledge because I am the source. They are not true. I never made those statements. I asked that they be stricken. This has nothing to do with whether or not they're based on depositions, which they're not. It's simply based on the fact that I'm the witness. I'm the only witness. Those statements are not true, and I ask that you strike them.
President.
Let him rule.
Mr. President.
No, who's talking? Joe.
The presiding officer, a reminder, is Patrick Leahy. He's the Senate pro tem and the presiding officer of the impeachment trial.
Ruling of the chair that this.
He's being given guidance by a Senate parliamentarian.
Yeah. So Senator Leahy could, in theory,
I'm sorry. The yeas and nays have been asked.
The yeas and nays have been asked for.
The yeas and nays have been requested.
Let him explain. Please let him explain, Mr. President.
That is Joe Manchin,
Why is it
a Democrat from West Virginia.
What was not false? What was false about it?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to answer the senator's question.
Is not in order under Senate Resolution 47, Section 4. Parties' presentation not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution. And that has been appealed. The yeas and nays have been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
So there's going to be a roll call vote now, Sue, because...
Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Barrasso.
We're now in a Senate roll call vote. To recap what just happened, Senator Mike Lee, he's a Republican from Utah. This is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
What is the question?
Bit of confusion here on the Senate floor. It appears that Mike Lee is requesting that they strike from the record remarks that were attributed to him. He is saying they are false and they did not happen. Those remarks were attributed to press reports, not to depositions or any testimony taken under oath.
And I'm not sure what the question is they're voting on. Are you,
They don't
Sue?
seem to be clear either. I believe that Leahy ruled that the motion that Mike Lee was asking was not in order because they are an impeachment trial, but there is clearly some confusion on the Senate floor, even among the majority leader, over what exactly they're voting on right now. We do see the impeachment managers huddling with the Senate majority leader.
So to recap, Senator Lee says he didn't say that, even if it was in press reports, and he wants them withdrawn from the record. It would be possible to withdraw his remarks from the record without detracting from the rest of the remarks that
Mr. Bennett.
It was not a substantive part of the overall case that Democrats are making, but I do think it raises an important point that's worth reminding people here. There was no independent congressional investigation into this event. Democrats are making a case off of things in the public record, public domain, videos that were shot by the rioters, Capitol Hill security footage, public comments from the president and from his Twitter feed. They have, however, at multiple times relied on press reports, and many of those press reports, including in this story that David Cicilline referenced on the floor, was attributed to anonymous sources, saying that what the president did that day. And this is a tricky strategy here because this is not official documents. None of this testimony was taken under oath. It can be disputed record. And we are seeing Mike Lee, who was mentioned in reference to this account, is disputing what happened in the press report of that account that David Cicilline cited.
This underscores the fact that there have been no witnesses called, and so far as we know, there won't be.
There was no congressional oversight hearings in the House. Democrats wanted to move very quickly to impeach the president prior to his leaving office. You are correct, Scott. There will be a motion at the end of the Trump defense team. They will be able to present their case. They have up to 16 hours. And at the end of it, the Senate can make motions to hear witnesses. They could make motions to hear from any number of people. There will not be a limit. We do not anticipate, however, that they are going to agree on any witnesses to call. You would need majority of support, obviously, to do that, although although these motions in the Senate only need a simple majority. They do not need supermajorities as other motions do. But the overall vibe of this impeachment trial from both the minority and majority is they want it to move quickly. If anything, they might want it to even wrap this weekend. And if you call witnesses and depose them, and this would not be in public, witness testimony is taken in private under oath, they could prolong this impeachment trial for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that is not something that literally anyone on Capitol Hill has shown any interest in doing.
There is some bipartisan agreement on that, I gather, isn't there?
There is. I mean, Democrats, for their part, they want to move on to the Biden agenda. They want to refocus the debate on things like COVID relief and their efforts to raise the minimum wage and economic relief. And Republicans, quite frankly, just don't want to keep talking about this. They don't see much political advantage to keep rehashing the events of January 6th. And most of them, quite frankly, are still pretty united behind the president, and their votes are not going to be moved. So part of the argument is let's just move on if the outcome is immovable.
Nina Totenberg has joined us. Nina.
So
yes.
You can see a lot of people in the well of the Senate, including Senator Coons, who's often somebody who helps cobble together a compromise. But Senator Lee was very exercised because he said the comments attributed to him in a press report were not true, that they were false. And he wants them stricken from the record. So they're still continuing, as far as I can see, with the vote, but very slowly to see if they can't figure a way around this.
And that vote would be to permit him to make a motion to have his remarks stricken? I'm still not clear on that.
I think the motion is what the parliamentarian said was the rule and gave it to the president pro tempore, Pat Leahy, who ruled that basically the managers could say what they want to say and cite whatever they want to cite, and the other side can cite what they want to cite. But almost as a matter of personal privilege, Mike Lee looks pretty ticked off, and I would suspect that they're trying to figure out a way around this. Maybe the House managers will withdraw that point.
There will be order.
There seems to be, let's
Hold
go
on,
back
let's
to
see
the floor for a
let's see what's
second.
going on.
Mr. President, we need order.
Senate will be in order.
Okay.
Consent to vitiate the appeal request that I made.
Senator Lee is on his feet.
Wait, before he withdraws.
Just
call on.
I withdraw the request for the yeas and nays.
Without objection.
Without objection.
Okay, and I withdraw the quorum call and call on the manager, Mr. Raskin, for a brief statement.
Jamie Raskin of Maryland.
The impeachment manager, Mr. Cicilline, correctly and accurately quoted a newspaper account, which the distinguished senator has taken objection to. So we're happy to withdraw it on the grounds that it is not true. And we are going to
repeated it too.
Okay, we're going to withdraw it this evening and without any prejudice to the ability to resubmit it if possible, and then we can debate it if we need it. But this is much ado about nothing because it's not critical in any way to our case.
You're not the one being cited as a witness, sir. All right.
So that remark will be
the
stricken.
manager's issue stands. Mr. Lee has
This is
withdrawn
Senate
his
Majority Leader
request,
Chuck Schumer.
and we may relitigate it tomorrow if we have to. I now ask unanimous consent. The trial adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow, Thursday, February 11th, and this also constitute the adjournment of the Senate.
The objection, without objection, so ordered. Senate stands adjourned.
Well, a historic day, once again, ended by a kerfuffle. The kerfuffle that got the blood racing. You're listening to live special coverage from NPR News. And joining you from Washington, D.C., I'm Scott Simon.
And I'm Susan Davis. A bit of a partisan clash there at the end, but the House impeachment managers have just wrapped their first day of arguments in the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump for inciting the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
The House managers, the Democrats today, relied heavily on Donald Trump's own words and the former president's own tweets and appearances to make the case that he was, as they said, quote, the inciter-in-chief of the riot. Democrats also relied on emotional, at times graphic, and violent video and audio clips from the attack.
And the trial closed with a bit of an objection. Senator Mike Lee made a request to withdraw remarks that had been attributed to him by a couple of the impeachment managers for the record. He said they were false. Jamie Raskin, the lead impeachment manager, agreed to withdraw them from the record. Also, although they said they could bring them back if they felt so, if it was so necessary. Here is a clip of Jamie Raskin talking about it.
The evidence will show you that ex-President Trump was no innocent bystander. The evidence will show that he clearly incited the January 6th insurrection. It will show that Donald Trump surrendered his role as commander-in-chief and became the inciter-in-chief of a dangerous insurrection. And this was, as one of our colleagues put it so cogently on January 6th itself, the greatest betrayal of the presidential oath in the history of the United States.
And Delegate Stacey Plaskett of the Virgin Islands laid out the case as the day went on.
The Vice President, the Speaker of the House, the first and second in line to the presidency, were performing their constitutional duties, presiding over the election certification, and they were put in danger because President Trump put his own desires, his own need for power over his duty to the Constitution and our democratic process. President Trump put a target on their backs, and his mob broke into the Capitol to hunt them down.
We are joined by legal affairs correspondent Nina Totenberg, White House correspondent Tamara Keith, senior political correspondent Ron Elving, and of course my colleague Susan Davis, who covers congressional affairs so beautifully. Welcome to everybody.
Hey, Scott. Thank
you. Nina, what did you hear?
Yes.
What did you hear that you want to pass along to us?
Well, I'm going to tell you this quickly because, believe it or not, I have to do a station fundraiser.
Oh, you're telling the right group to believe it.
I'm telling the right group.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. No, your remarks will not be withdrawn from this group.
My remarks will not be withdrawn. Yeah. You know, this was a very passionate argument made by the Democratic House managers, and they drove it into the ground this evening, saying over and over and over again that the president, who has, as they noted, is known to have done as many as 108 tweets in one day, on this day, did only 5 tweets. And none of them condemned the violence outright. None of them told the attackers to go home. And that even the late afternoon pre-recorded remarks praised the attackers and said, we love you, we value you, this day will remain forever and in memory, and that Trump's, in their view, Trump's only interest was in stopping the certification, that he was not interested in the safety of Mike Pence, nor the safety of other people in the Capitol, despite the pleas from the minority leader in the House and public urgings by Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, and lots of other folks. He was only interested, according to the managers, in one thing, and that was stopping the certification. He never called Mike Pence to worry about his safety or his family, and that reportedly infuriated Pence that the president didn't seem to care about the vice president's safety and, more importantly, the safety of his family. And that's the case that they made today.
Let me ask you a quick question and let you get to important business, Nina. It seemed to me that at some point this afternoon and this evening, the House managers turned from making the argument that Donald Trump had incited and set off the riot to trying to cement the case that whatever had happened, once he knew the riot was going on, he did nothing to stop it, and that was an abrogation of his sworn constitutional duties.
That is the case they made. And
which is slightly different from inciting it, but this is...
It is different than inciting it, but their incitement argument is not about that day alone. Their incitement argument is that it began weeks, even months before, even before the full-on election campaign, when the then president began telling people that the only way he could lose would be if the election was rigged, that he never conceded that he might lose the election. And then when he did lose the election, in terms of the state certification and the Electoral College, he continued to refuse to admit that he had lost and perpetuated what the managers call, the big lie. That is, that the election was stolen from Trump's followers. And so that is the essence of the first part of the resolution. And the second part of the impeachment resolution is that he went about undercutting state officials, trying to get the process redone, trying to get new slates of electors, and ultimately trying to stop the certification even when his vice president told him that was beyond his constitutional duties to do anything to prevent the certification.
Sue Davis.
Ron Elving, we've heard hours of emotional testimony today, but can we just take a step back and talk about the historic nature of today? 2 impeachments for Donald Trump, the second Senate impeachment trial. What do you think the impact, the sum total impact of these impeachments are for Donald Trump and his legacy?
Largely, this impeachment is going to replace the other in the memories of most Americans. I don't think most people were terribly clear on exactly what went on in the first impeachment. It had to do with a phone call in the Ukrainian leader, and it had to do with President Trump's concern about facing Joe Biden, well-placed concern, as it turns out, and his attempts to dislodge or to disrupt the Biden campaign early on. It was a little confusing. It went on for days and days. It was technical. There was a lot of legalism, and we couldn't hear the phone call.
Yeah.
We never got to hear the phone call. Well, this time we saw it, and we saw it again, and we saw it again, and we saw it again. This video that has so much impact. This is a little bit like watching the Twin Towers go down in 9/11. You saw that video again and again for years, and in a sense, we've never stopped seeing it. So that's what they're going for here. They're going for something that transcends all the legalisms, that transcends all the sense of who's right and who's wrong, and just shows people how horrific January 6th was inside the Capitol, and then tying that back to the president, and tying it back, as Nina was saying, all the way to last summer and his long-standing campaign to delegitimize this election well before it was even happening. Well before anybody started mailing in ballots, the president was trying to delegitimize any result other than a win for him.
Where is the country right now on this impeachment? Because I think of the first impeachment, it fell pretty sharply on partisan lines. Republican versus Democrat. How you voted was how you viewed it. Does that hold true with this impeachment?
There is still a great deal of partisan divide with this impeachment because, as you can see from the Senate chamber, many of the people on the president's team, the people of his party, are reluctant to turn on him. They believe in many cases, I don't know about the senators, I think a secret ballot of these senators might come out really differently from what we will see when they do eventually vote in public. But in the country, there are many Republicans who tell pollsters that they think the election was stolen. Maybe most of them, maybe most of Trump's voters really still believe that this election was stolen just on his say-so. So, yes, on that basis alone, you're going to get a sharp partisan divide in their reaction to this impeachment.
But fair to say that Donald Trump is still the leader of the undisputed leader of the Republican Party.
In the absence of anyone else, and there couldn't be anyone else, it can't really be Mitch McConnell, especially since he has decided that the election was legitimate and he doesn't go with the president on this assertion that the president so insists on. And because it feels better, I think, for most Republicans to feel like they won and somehow it was stolen by the Democrats and the media, they would rather deal with that than deal with what actually happened.
Let's turn now to Tamara Keith, if we can. Tam, thanks so much for being with us. I made actually turned out to be not so short a list of things that I thought I knew but were sharpened for me today. The rioters were 58 feet from the Senate chamber. House members and senators had to sprint to safety. And there were very blunt calls for Vice President Pence and Speaker Pelosi to be killed, weren't there?
And there was a gallows assembled on the lawn of the Capitol that was, in theory, intended for the vice president. So, yes, those are things that we learned. I think one thing that stood out, they played a lot of surveillance video from inside the Capitol, piecing together where members of Congress were, where the insurrectionists were, and there was video of Mitt Romney leaving the Senate chamber and Officer Goodman, who is now sainted for diverting the insurrectionists away from senators and away from the Senate chamber. Officer Goodman basically, you don't have sound, but telling Romney to run, and Romney turning around and running. And to see Senator Mitt Romney running full speed was stunning.
Yeah. And we should note, I had failed to appreciate until seeing the video over and over again today, how opulently armed so many of the rioters were.
In addition to using American flag poles as weapons, they also had bear spray and actual real live things that we would recognize as weapons and shields. And they were wearing tactical gear and helmets, and they came ready to fight. I think that what Democrats, the House impeachment managers, were trying to do today was build a case that all of those very prepared, heavily armed people were there to do President Trump's bidding, and that their presence could have been anticipated and headed off. And then later today, in the later part of the arguments, arguing that President Trump could have done something to stop them once it was clear what they were doing, they claim, at his behest. And so they went through a series of tweets from President Trump during the day, this video that he released where he said he loved them and he understood where they were coming from, a tweet later around 6 o'clock, the last tweet of the day, where he essentially said, "This is what happens. This is what you get when you don't let me win." Not exactly phrased that way, but when all of these people's votes, as he sees it, were disenfranchised by the results of the election not being overturned.
And Tam, what do you make of the focus that House managers seem to put on the prominence of Vice President Pence in the events, saluting him as a patriot, thanking him for his courage, and repeating time and time again that he was an absolute target of the mob, and for that matter, in their judgment, President Trump.
And the video makes it clear that he was a target, and a tweet from President Trump sent while the Capitol was under siege, criticizing Pence. It was clear on that day that Pence was a target. They are both holding up Pence as someone, as a defender of the Constitution and a hero for following his duty. In a way, I think that is meant as a contrast to President Trump. And also they're holding up the Capitol Police as people who were attacked for defending the Capitol and defending the American way. There were a lot of injuries among the police officers who were defending the Capitol. A couple have died, a couple have since taken their own lives. Ron, one of the things that struck me throughout the day that we received in some of the poll reports from Capitol Hill reporters is some of the most flattering comments about the House impeachment arguments came from Republicans. Even Republicans that have said they will not vote to convict the president have praised sort of the quality of the case and the articulate nature of the case. And it begs the question of, how steep of a hill does the president's defense team have to climb here to make an equally compelling case, especially since, quite frankly, they didn't make such a great impression on the first day of this trial?
They did not, but, frankly, they don't have to match what the House managers have done. They don't have to be equally impressive. All they have to do is mount a defense that gets some heads nodding on one side of the chamber, and then they sit back and wait to win. I mean, it's a little bit like feeling confident of a jury before you get up to make any arguments in a trial. You know the jury's on your side, that is to say, enough of them so that there won't be a 2/3 vote to convict the president. And because you know that, in a sense, you're really just trying to please, to some degree, if that's possible, the president himself, and he was not pleased with the first day, and, trying to mount something of a defense so that you can say, in the end, we won.
Tamara Keith?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how we have heard today from one of the president's attorneys after some of these arguments had been presented. He talked to reporters in the Capitol, and he said, yeah, I didn't learn anything new. We knew the mob breached the Capitol and wreaked havoc, and I'm waiting for them to connect that to President Trump, and so far that hasn't happened. That is where they're heading with their defense, is that this was not the president's fault. He says they're relying on a lot of presumptions. We deal with evidence, not guesses. And I think that is one of the challenges here, as Sue talked about earlier. A lot of the evidence they point to is unnamed sources in news reports because they haven't spoken to people under oath. They don't have people who were inside the White House saying what was actually happening that day or what the president's state of mind was, what happened with the National Guard not being called in, not showing up in time. And that is a deficiency in the Democrats' case now.
Tam, we should note, though, that the Senate does have the right to call witnesses. They will be allowed to make a motion for witnesses once the defense concludes.
They could have chosen to do that, right?
So why not? They still have a chance, and I guess it's possible, but the reason why not is that the longer this drags on, the longer they are not moving forward with Joe Biden, the current president's agenda, which the president says is quite urgent.
Well, thanks very much to everybody. Tomorrow we're going to hear the second part of the House manager's case against former President Trump. And then, of course, Mr. Trump's lawyers will have equal time to argue their defense. But that concludes our coverage for tonight, and we thank you so much for being with us.
And thank you to our wonderful team, Senior Editor-Correspondent Ron Elving, White House Correspondent Tamara Keith. Thank you both so much. Earlier this evening, we were joined by Legal Affairs Correspondent Nina Totenberg, White House Correspondent Aisha Rasco, National Political Correspondent Mara Liasson, and National Justice Correspondent Carrie Johnson. And all those behind the scenes today, thank you so very much. Tomorrow, we will continue our coverage of former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial. I'm Susan Davis.
And I'm Scott Simon. Sue, so good to be with you.
As always, Scott.
And this has been special coverage from NPR News.
Well, better late than never. That's what they say. It's Out of the Box on 89.5 WHRV. Delayed in its start because of the coverage that we're providing for the Trump impeachment trial. And we'll have the same kind of predicament tomorrow night because we don't know their schedule in the Capitol. So we're not sure when the proceedings will end every night. So please be patient with us as we make it through this NPR coverage of the Senate impeachment trial on 89.5 WHRV Norfolk, 88.5 WHRG Gloucester Point, 90.1 WHRX Nassawadox, 91.9 WHRE Eastville, and 88.1 WHRL Emporia. We're simulcasting on Alt Radio, our HD2 channel, and at altradio.org. This is public media serving Eastern Virginia, playing you all new rock, Americana, and blues. And like I always do, I'll start off the show with some brand new releases never before heard on the radio. And one of them is a new charity single that's just been released today called I Know What Love Is, that is meant to help out musicians who have been hit hard by the pandemic. It's organized by one of the guys in the band Good Old War. I'll play that song during this first set. We'll also hear the Fruit Bats, great indie band who are about to put out a new album, and I'll play you the first song we're hearing from it during this set. And we'll start things off with Australia's Middle Kids. Their next album will have this song on it. It's called Cellophane on Out of the Box.
Never quite on time, running late, running wild, looking up star signs, eating apples on the train. I know you say it's alright as you keep it inside. Hey, when did you realize there's no guy with the first prize waiting at the end? Cellophane, you shake, you never change. Cellophane, you're strange up in your brain. Are you afraid to stop and find the coastline, making deals, selling houses, promise of the good life. Compliance teams, break routines, nothing more sad than a man who cries. In his car in the driveway, blue helium light, blinking again. Cellophane, you shake, you never change. Cellophane, you're strange, up in your brain. Are you afraid to stop and find a reason why you can't get away from me? Cellophane, you shake, you never change. Cellophane, you're strange, up in your brain. Are you afraid to stop and find a reason why you can't get away from me? You think you're a black umbrella holding off the rain. I think you're a silk white kite blown off course again. You think you're a black umbrella holding off the rain. I think you're a silk white kite blown off course again. Cellophane, you shake, you never change. Cellophane, you're strange, up in your brain. Are you afraid to stop and find a reason why you can't get away from me?
It's a new fundraising single that was just released today by Kevin Goodwin of Good Old War on Out of the Box. He's gotten over 50 different people to join him on that track, and they'll be using the proceeds from it to help out Music Cares, which is a company that helps out musicians who have been hit hard by the pandemic. But that was I Know What Love Is Because of You. We heard Fruit Bats before that with a great new song called The Balcony that'll be on their next album. And the Australian band Middle Kids are getting ready to release their new album. It'll be called Today We're the Greatest. And that was Cellophane. I'm Paul Chagru, getting a late start on the show tonight because of coverage of the Senate impeachment trial, and we'll have the same kind of, up-in-the-air attitude with the show tomorrow night because we don't know when the Senate will call an end to the impeachment each night. So we could be delayed again tomorrow night, but we appreciate your patience. Here's a brand new song from The Killers, just out on the deluxe edition of their latest album, a previously unreleased song called C'est la vie. On Out of the Box.
There's dignity in calloused hands. The tools you have are not for sale. But sometimes you're the hammer, and sometimes you're the nail. It's not about how you get lost, it's what you do to find the trail. But sometimes you're Ahab, and sometimes you're the when frogs are falling from the sky, just take responsibility. But sometimes you're the prisoner, sometimes you're the free. Just let your conscience be your guide. When heartbreak hits you, say la vie. But sometimes you're the shih tzu, and sometimes you're the tree. Do-do-do-ba, do-do-do-ba, that's right. Do-do-do-ba. Sometimes you're the river, sometimes you're the sea, sometimes you're a stranger to yourself. It's a dangerous place to be, but you'll be fine. Just remember where you come from and how you got the song. Then you'll always get it right more than you get it wrong. We're with you in the mirror, right down to the bone.
something matters. I wanna tell you this matters to me. There's never the right time, so just let it happen. Oh, let it happen. Once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime, let it happen.
Feeling it all like the first time. I thought I moved on, but I'm watching the waves rolling like I did back then. You were next to me, and I can't forget. Feeling so lost and I can't lie. I thought I moved on, but I'm watching the way your hair dances in the wind like the memories play in my head. Still thinking about you. I came a long way to find you. Is there anything left? Can this be the end? I'll take every song and write it over again. I'm still thinking about you. Do I cross your mind? I know that it's wrong, but I'm singing the same old songs on the radio, hoping you will hear and that you will know. Give me one more night. I know that it's wrong, but I'm playing the sunset late. It's the holidays, all the friends are here, and you love this place. I'm still thinking about you. I came a long way to find you. Is there anything left? Can this be the end? I'll take every song and write it over again. I'm still thinking about you. Need to forget, but I can't yet. If it's not the first, we won't end up alone. I'll wait for another moment, 'cause you're just the first on a set list of songs. I'm still thinking about you. I'm still thinking about you. I came a long way to find you. Is there anything left? Can this be the end? I'll take every song and write it over again. I'm still thinking about you. Is there anything left? Can this be the end? I'll take every song and write it over again. I'm still thinking about you.
Canadian artist Mike Adele there on Out of the Box from his new album En Masse. Came out with that right at the end of the year, and that was Still Thinking About You. We also heard Rami. She's the lead singer of the XX, but will be releasing a new solo album soon. That was a song from it called Lifetime. And we started that set off with a new one by The Killers. who have just reissued their album from last year called Imploding the Mirage. The deluxe edition has some previously unavailable tracks on it, like that one called C'est la vie, starting off that set. I'm Paul Chagru, and I'll play you a great new recording here from our own backyard from the Hampton Roads band called Brothers. They're working on the album that this song will be on, should be coming out sometime in the spring. Can't wait to hear the rest of it. Here is Play Me Home from Brothers on Out of the Box.
Play me somewhere when I was young. Play me back there, play it for me, son. Play me somewhere simple and slow, lighten my load. Lord, I've been strong so long, but I don't feel like walking no more. I don't feel like walking no more. With every line, I'm flying on your song. Play me one more, sing one more. Play me one step closer to home. Play it sweetly, play it real slow. Take your time, son, don't miss a note. Play with feeling, healing my soul, lighten my load. Lord, I've been strong so long, but I don't feel like walking no more. I don't feel like walking no more. With every line, I'm flying on your song. Play me one more, sing one more. Play me one step closer to home. I feel like dancing, listening to you. I feel like I'm running through the fields again. When you feel it, well, I feel it too. Play me proud, son. I was once a young buck like you. Lord, I've been strong so long, but I don't feel like walking no more. I don't feel like walking no more. With every line, I'm flying on your song. Play me one more, sing one more. Play me one step closer to home. Lord, I've been strong so long, but I don't feel like walking no more. I don't feel like walking no more. Play me one more, sing one more. Play me one step closer to home. Strong so long, but I don't feel like walking no more. I don't feel like walking no more. I'm
Forgot to get old, forgot to get old, forgot to get old, getting on time, forgot to get old, getting on time, forgot to get old. Tight. Walking to the other side, to the light, yeah. But no one really ever dies, no one really ever dies. Oh, sweet, oh, oblivion, dear child, and we were so very young and wild. Got to get it. Forgot to get old, forgot to get old, getting on time, forgot to get old, getting on time, forgot to get old. Why? Your chromosomes, they don't lie, so you buy yourself an extra X, Y, X, Y. Oh, sweet, child, and we were so very young and wild. Forgot to get time, forgot to get on time, got 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 to get on time.
I know that I caused this pain. I know you can't let me go. Crying in the midnight rain, waiting on a miracle. I release you, though it's hard to say the words. I release you from holding on to the bridge I burned. I release you from the darkness, from the love that we swore was true. I hope that someday the sun will shine again and you'll release me too. Even if I'm in your arms, even if you touch my skin, I could never change my heart after being where it's been. I release I could never change my heart after being where it's been. I release you from the darkness, from the love that we swore was true. I hope that someday the sun will shine again and you'll release me too. You'll release me.
Beautiful new song there from Grace Potter called Release on Out of the Box. That'll be on her next album. We also heard a new collaboration between Jimbo Mathis of Squirrel Nut Zippers and Andrew Bird, longtime rock violinist. The song is called Sweet Oblivion and will be on their next album called These 13, their first collaboration together. And we started that set off with the Hampton Roads Band, who call themselves Brothers. They've just released the first song from their album coming out this spring called Classic. That was Play Me Home from Brothers. I'm Paul Chagru. Here's a new one from the British band Django Django. Later this month, they're releasing their new album Glowing in the Dark. And here's the title song to it on Out of the Box.
Can't see in front of me, drawing my memory up. My senses take a leave, I need a space to breathe up. It starts to emanate, the space between illuminates. Give me a remedy and a guide, and now we see the speed of light is leaving us behind. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 the dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 the dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark, the dark. I lay awake at night, it's gonna melt my mind up. Your eyes will radiate, they're gonna lead the way up. It starts to emanate, the space between illuminates. Give me a remedy and a guide, and now we see the speed of light is leaving us behind. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 in the dark, in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 in the dark, in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 in the dark, in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 dark. Now we're glowing in the dark, 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 in the dark, in the dark, 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 dark.
soul. If you open up her mind, really let the blood flow. She talks in crystals, always sitting down to give you unsolicited advice. Tarot cards and rainbows. And my friend Wheeler, he's been talking to a healer ever since his wife left home. And now when I visit, he speaks in dialects of mystics about the prospects of my soul. Says he knows more than I'll ever know. If you say so. 'Cause I don't care how I get there, darling. Name the cure and I'll come running. I don't care how I get there, darling. Say the words with enough conviction. 'Cause I don't care how I get there, as long as I arrive. And I met a surgeon, said he'd rather work on patients who believe they will survive. Grateful for all they got, and just the same, the perfect medicine won't save you. If you're confident you'll die, if you made your mind up. 'Cause I was taking sugar pills and I didn't even know it till the doctor finally told me. He said I had to prove it, didn't need those drugs at all. And someday soon you'll thank me. He said you'll thank me for lying. And I thanked him for lying. What a thought. Thanked him for lying. For
That's the indie band Elizabeth and the Catapult on Out of the Box with a new song called Pop the Placebo. We also heard a new collaboration between the Avalanches, MGMT, and Johnny Marr on a song called The Divine Chord, which is on the Avalanches' new album. They're an Australian band. And Django started that set with the title cut to their new album called Glowing in the Dark. I'm Paul Chagru. I've got time for one more set on this very abbreviated edition of Out of the Box, and I'll start it up with another track from the album of the week. All this week, we're featuring the new one from Foo Fighters. They've been at it for over 25 years now, and this is their 10th album called Medicine at Midnight. Here's the title song to it from Foo Fighters on Out of the Box.
without accepting of the night fight. No way out accepting of the night fight. No way out accepting of the night fight.
Break my soul in two, looking for you, but you're right here. If I can't relate to you any more than who am I related to? And if this is the long haul, how'd we get here so soon? Did I close my fist around something delicate? Did I shatter you? And I'm sitting on a bench in Coney Island, wondering where did my baby go? The fast times, the bright lights, the merry-go. Sorry for not making you my centerfold. Over and over, lost again with no surprises. Disappointments, close your eyes and it gets colder and colder when the sun goes down.
The question pounds my head. What's a lifetime of achievement? If I pushed you to the edge, but you were too polite to leave me. Do you miss the rogue who coaxed you into paradise and left you there? Will you forgive my soul? You're too wise to trust me and too old to care.
'Cause we were like the mall before the internet. It was the one place to be. The mischief, the gift wrapped suburban dreams.
Sorry for not winning you an arcade ring. Over and over, lost again with no surprises. Disappointments, close your eyes and it gets colder and colder when the sun goes down.
Were you waiting at our old spot in the tree line by the gold clock? Did I leave you hanging every single day?
Were you standing in the hallway with a big cake? Happy birthday. Did I paint your bluest skies the darkest gray? The universe away. And when I got into the accident, the sight that flashed before me was your face.
But when I walked up to the podium, I think that I forgot to say your name.
I'm on a bench in Coney Island, wondering where did my baby go? The fast times, the bright lights, the merry-go. Sorry for not making you my centerfold. Over and over, lost again with no surprises. Disappointments, close your eyes and it gets colder and colder when the sun goes down. When the sun goes down, the sight that flashed before me was your face. When the sun goes down, but I think that I forgot to say your name. Over and over, sorry for not making you mine, making you mine, making you my centerfold.
That's a new collaboration between Taylor Swift and The National on her new album, Evermore. That was called Coney Island to finish up Out of the Box tonight. We heard Painted Shield right before that, a new band formed by Stone Gossard of Pearl Jam, and that was Knife Fight. And we started the set with Medicine at Midnight, the title cut to the album of the week, the new release by Foo Fighters. You can hear my review of the album at whrv.org/album of the week or by subscribing to the podcast at iTunes. And we'll hear plenty more from the album all this week. Time permitting, that is. We're giving priority to the Senate impeachment trial. So however long that goes on, tomorrow or the day after, or even on Saturday, will be preempted for that NPR coverage. But here's hoping that we'll get in a lot more great tunes tomorrow night here on Out of the Box. So thanks for listening tonight. Please stay safe, mask up, and let's be careful out there.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation. Consider joining one of the foundation's giving circles where caring people pool their resources to tackle specific local causes. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org/givingyourway.
Support comes from North Carolina's Currituck Outer Banks, where families can find remote beaches, the Corolla wild horses, and spacious modern accommodations. Vacation rental information, visitor guide, and more can be found at CorollaNC.com.
The Black church has been the root of the most celebrated aspects of Black culture.
Gospel music is about the majesty of Jesus.
It sets the tone for how you will feel when the word comes forth.
It's such a distinct flavor of music.
It's something about those songs that brings joy.
Tune in or stream February 16th at 9 p.m. on WHRO TV 15. This is 89.5 WHRV, and Senate in session is next, so take it away, Jay.
They're known as SMV. Interesting concept with this record, using 3 bass players to front the group. The great Stanley Clarke, Marcus Miller, and Victor Wooten, SMV. And the track there called Tutu, written by Marcus Miller from the Thunder CD. Interesting concept. You kind of have to be careful when you're using the bass like that, because obviously it's a bass. You can get very muddy in the mix and things like that, but it's smart how they use the complete register of the instrument. You know, they're playing melodies on the instrument, all kind of things, and so they avoid the muddiness of the bottom end of the bass. And smartly done, man. I take my hat off to these guys. Of course, they're extraordinary players. Victor Wooten, Marcus Miller, and Stanley Clarke. Thunder, the CD. I'm Jay Sennett. Sennett in session now on 89.5 WHRV-HD Norfolk, 88.5 WHRG-HD Gloucester Point, 90.1 WHRX-HD Nessawetics, 91.9 WHR-EHD Eastville, and 88.1 WHRL Emporia. Jazz till 1 on Sennett in session. Thank you so much for tuning in. We heard Marcus Miller with SMV. Here's Marcus leading his own session from the Renaissance release. His take on War's Slippin' into Darkness into the set. That's trumpeter Roy Hargrove and the quintet from the CD With the Tenors of Our Time, referencing tenor saxophone players. There are a few different great tenor saxophone players featured on this record. On that track, the legendary saxophonist Stanley Turrentine featured on the track called Soppin' the Biscuit, wrapping up that set. And the Finnish Afro-Cuban Jazz Orchestra before that with Manteca. And Marcus Miller, bassist Marcus Miller from the Renaissance release with a nice rendition of the war classic Slippin' Into Darkness starting that set. I'm Jay Sennett. Thanks so much for listening to the jazz here on Sennett in Session. Drummer, composer Jeff Tane Watts from his Blue Volume 1 release with a track he wrote called Farley Strange on 89.5.
Who making gumbo? You say gumbo? Did you say gumbo? What you not? What you not? What you know about gumbo? What you know about gumbo?
That's Brazilian guitarist Sandro Albert from The Color of Things. I love the way he incorporates the music of his culture in his writing and playing. Things like the samba or the bossa nova or the partido alto. Great traditional Brazilian rhythms. Outstanding jazz player as well. Sandro Albert, The Color of Things, and the track they're called If We Could Dance Now. And drumming great, Jeff Tane Watts. Tane is also, I think, an outstanding writer. The CD from, called Blue Volume 1. And we heard Farley Strange starting that set. Great jazz right here on Send It In Session, the place to be for jazz on the radio here in southeastern Virginia. Thanks so much for tuning in. Here's Finnish pianist Marian Pedresco and the quartet live at the Jazz Standard, which actually sadly just closed its doors up in New York City, featuring some great guitar work here from Andreas Oberg. Live at the Jazz Standard, Marian Pedresco on 89.5.
Marianne Petrescu on the piano. David Fink on the bass.
The man I love took from my best friend. That girl got lucky, stolen back again. You better come on in my kitchen, 'cause it's going to be raining outdoors. Oh, he's gone. I know he won't come back. I took his last nigga from his nation sack. You better come on. Yeah, in my kitchen, 'cause it's going to be raining outdoors. Can't you hear that wind howl? Can't you hear that wind howl? You better come on in my kitchen, 'cause it's going to be raining outdoors. When a man gets in trouble, everybody throws him down. Looking for his good friend, none can be found. You better come on in my kitchen, because it's going to be raining outdoors. Well, the time is coming when it's gonna be slow. You can't make the weather, babe, stride along, so you better come on in my kitchen, because it's going to be raining outdoors. Gonna be raining outdoors. They're gonna be raining outdoors. Yes, it's going to be raining outdoors. Come on in my kitchen.
Some blues there with Cassandra Wilson from her Blue Light Till Dawn release from several years back. Wrapping up that set, the Robert Johnson classic, Come On In My Kitchen, closing the set. And pianist Marian Pedresco and the quartet live at the Jazz Standard, featuring guitarist Andreas Oberg, with a track called Blues Etude, starting that set. I'm Jay Sennett, Sennett in session on 89.5, WHRV HD Norfolk, 88.5, WHRG HD Gloucester Point, 90.1, WHRX HD Nessawattix, 91.9, WHRE HD Eastville, and 88.1 WHRL Emporia. Saxophonist Scott Hamilton up next from back in New York. I've Just Seen Her, the track on 89.5.
Thank you.